15 years ago, you stole my biological son and threw me out with the baby you despised. Now I've returned as the power broker, who holds the strings to your complete and utter ruin, ready to force you to your knees as you watch me reverse the fate you dealt right before your very eyes. Before we begin, drop a comment and let me know what city or state you're watching from. I'd love to see where everyone is. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so this channel can keep growing. The New York City air still felt the same humid, carrying that distinct smell of wet earth after a summer rain. But for Elena, every breath here felt like inhaling shards of glass. 15 years ago, under this same sky, she was dragged from the Ashford family's Park Avenue penthouse, branded with the vilest accusation a wife could face cheating on her husband while he was out of town. She was cavate, like trash, penniless and defenseless, with nothing but a newborn in her arms, whom her mother-in-law Eleanor had called a bastard child. Now Elena stood before a large mirror inside a sleek black town car parked directly in front of the grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel. She was no longer that pitiful woman with tangled hair and worn-out clothes. The Elena of today wore a perfectly tailored navy blue power suit that accentuated her now straight and steady shoulders. Her gaze was cold, as sharp as a blade honed for years by suffering. "Mom, we're here." A gentle voice broke Elena's reverie. Elena turned. Beside her sat Liam, the son she had raised with her own sweat and tears while in exile. At 15, Liam was handsome, polite, and had a calming presence in his eyes. He had no idea that his true identity was the key to the storm Elena was about to unleash. He was the child she had cared for with all her love, even though she knew biologically he was the fruit of her husband's betrayal with another woman. But in Elena's eyes, Liam was her fortress. "Are you ready, honey? Remember, stay close to me." "Don't say much, just observe," Elena instructed, straightening the collar of Liam's shirt. "I'm ready, Mom. Whatever you do, I support you," Liam answered with sincerity. Elena gave a small nod. Beside Liam sat Maya, her best friend and business partner, who for the last 10 years had helped her build a real estate empire abroad. Maya was supportive, but she was also the only person who knew the true depth of the vengeance Elena harbored. "Stick to the plan, Elena. Don't let your emotions get the best of you in front of the cameras. We're here as Sterling Holdings." "You are the savior of their nearly bankrupt foundation," Maya whispered, offering reinforcement. Elena didn't answer. She only offered a faint smile that never reached her eyes. The car door was opened by a chauffeur. Elena stepped out, followed by Liam and Maya. A barrage of camera flashes immediately greeted them. Tonight was the fundraising gala for the Ashford Foundation, a non-profit organization that was the pride of her former mother-in-law. The foundation was on the verge of collapse due to an internal corruption scandal, and they desperately needed a major investor to launder their reputation and restore their finances. As Elena strode into the ballroom, the buzz of socialite chatter suddenly died down. Her presence radiated an undeniable aura of authority. At the far end of the room, on a small stage, stood the very people Elena wanted to destroy. Eleanor. The old woman still looked arrogant in her silk designer gown, dripping with excessive diamonds. Beside her stood Adrian, Elena's ex-husband, who looked older now with lines of anxiety etched on his face. And next to him, Sylvia, the woman who was once Adrian's mistress and now played the part of the haughty hostess. Elena walked slowly. Each click of her heels on the marble floor seemed to count down to their destruction. When they were only 10 feet apart, Eleanor narrowed her eyes, trying to recognize the figure before her. "Good evening, Mrs. Ashford. My apologies for being a little late," Elena said, her voice low but powerful. Eleanor's face, which had been plastered with a fake smile for the guests, suddenly turned pale. The champagne flute in her hand trembled violently. She stared at Elena from head to toe. It can't be." Adrian, standing behind his mother, nearly choked his eyes wide in disbelief. "Elena, is that really you?" Sylvia, sensing the awkwardness, tried to take control. As Adrian's legal wife, now she felt she had territory to defend. "Who are you? This is a private event for major donors." "Security, how did a stranger get in?" Maya stepped forward before security could approach. "A stranger, I believe you've been misinformed, Mrs. Ashford. Allow me to introduce Mrs. Elena Vance, the CEO of Sterling Holdings, the primary investor, who has already signed a commitment for a $50 million grant to this foundation. If you want us to leave, that funding leaves with us." The room froze. Eleanor almost collapsed if Adrian hadn't quickly steadied her. She looked at Elena with a fear that began to creep into her eyes, fear of a past she had buried deep, now resurrected, and standing before her with immense power. "Elena, how did you become this?" Adrian's voice trembled. There was a faint note of regret, but it was mostly dominated by disbelief. Elena looked at Adrian without a shred of the love that once filled her heart. She saw him as a weak, cowardly man who had allowed his wife to be cast out without proof. "The world turns, Adrian, and it seems it has brought me back to see how you've managed the blessings you stole from me." Elena's eyes then shifted to Eleanor. She saw the old woman's hands were still shaking. "Mrs. Ashford, I hear this foundation focuses on the welfare of children. How noble. I'd like to see for myself how you educate the children under your care. Is it as well as you educated me all those years ago?" The sentence was a sharp slap across Eleanor's face. She knew exactly what she had done 15 years ago about the baby boy she had swapped to secure a male heir of her own bloodline, never caring that she had exchanged Elena's biological child with Sylvia's. Suddenly, a teenage boy emerged from backstage. He wore messy clothes and had a sullen expression. It was Ryan, the boy Eleanor had always considered her biological grandson, when in fact he was Elena's swapped son. Ryan yelled at a waiter because his drink wasn't cold enough, showcasing his terrible temper. Elena saw Ryan. Her heart ached with a pain she couldn't explain. There was a visceral pull she couldn't ignore. That was the son she should have held. The son who should have grown up with her love but was now a rebellious teenager in the hands of the cold-hearted Sylvia and Eleanor. Elena took a deep breath, suppressing the emotional turmoil that nearly shattered her professional mask. She turned and looked at Liam, who stood calmly beside her. She compared the polite Liam with the rude Ryan. The irony was excruciating. Mrs. Ashford Elena spoke again, her voice now as cold as ice. "I've decided not to just provide funding. As the primary investor, I will be placing my own audit team in the Foundation's office starting tomorrow morning. I want to ensure that every dollar I give doesn't vanish, much like this family's integrity in the past." Eleanor wanted to protest, but her desperate financial situation left her powerless. She could only swallow the bitter lump in her throat. Of course, Elena. You are our guest of honor." "Not a guest," Elena corrected sharply. "I am the owner of this foundation's future, and perhaps the owner of all of yours." Elena turned, leading her entourage out of the room without a backward glance. Inside the car, as the door shut, Elena's composure crumbled. Her hands gripped her own knees until her knuckles turned white. Mom, are you okay?" Liam took Elena's hand, feeling the cold sweat on her palm. Elena looked at Liam with a wounded expression. "I'm fine, Liam. I just realized that revenge comes at a very high price." Elena closed her eyes. She had just decided to re-enter the demonic circle of that family. She knew the risks. She knew that starting tomorrow she would have to watch her biological son Ryan be mistreated by Sylvia while she kept the truth from Liam to prevent her plans from unraveling. A small but risky decision had been made. She wouldn't be a distant investor. She would move into the old house near Eleanor's residence, challenging the ghosts of her past head-on. Maya Elena called without opening her eyes. "Cancel our hotel reservation. We're moving into that old house on Maple Drive right across the street from their gate." Maya gasped. "That's too close, Elena. They could be watching you all the time." "Let them," Elena replied coldly. "I want Eleanor to lose sleep every time she sees my lights on. I want her to feel me watching her even in her dreams." That night, in the city that had once cast her out, Elena took her first step to reclaim what was rightfully hers, even if it meant sacrificing what was left of her own peace of mind. Elena's decision to occupy the old house directly opposite the Ashford estate was deliberate. Every morning, from behind the sheer curtains of her second-floor window, she could observe the activity in the house that had once been her emotional prison. She saw Adrian's car coming and going, she saw the same housekeepers still bustling about, and she saw the shadow of her own tortured past lingering there. This morning, Elena's heart beat faster as she saw a teenage boy, Ryan, exit the house, his school backpack slung carelessly over one shoulder. Ryan was berating a chauffeur because the car hadn't been warmed up in time. "He was raised on anger," Elena whispered to herself, her hand touching the cold window pane. A pang of guilt struck her. If she hadn't been framed and exiled 15 years ago, would Ryan have grown into a calmer young man like Liam? "Mom, breakfast is ready." Liam's voice came from behind the door. Elena quickly pulled her hand away from the glass and turned, forcing her most serene smile. "Okay, sweetie. I'll be right down." In the dining room, Liam had neatly arranged a plate of pancakes. Maya was already there, busy with her tablet. The atmosphere in this house felt warm, a stark contrast to the cold air emanating from the mansion across the street. But the peace was shattered when Maya looked up, her expression serious. "Elena Sylvia is making a move," Maya said bluntly. "She's invited several board members' wives and foundation managers for brunch at the country club this morning. The subtle message being spread is that she's going to clarify who the new donor really is." Elena sipped her tea slowly. She knew clarify was a euphemism for character assassination. She feels threatened. Sylvia never had anything that was truly hers. The position she occupies now was stolen, so she's terrified another thief will come and take it. "Are you going?" Maya asked, hesitant. "It could be an emotional trap." "I have to, Maya. If I hide, the accusations from the past will remain their truth. I have to show them that the mud they threw never actually stuck," Elena replied, her tone unshakable. The luxurious country club was filled with glamorous women whose perfumes saturated the air. When Elena walked in with Maya, the room fell silent. Sylvia, standing in the center of a circle of socialites, immediately put on a look of feigned concern. "Oh, look who it is!" Sylvia's voice was shrill, loud enough for everyone to hear. She approached Elena with an exaggeratedly graceful stride. "Welcome, Elena. Or should I say, Miss Investor, we were just discussing how fortunate our foundation is to receive help, even though we all know your history in this city." Elena stood tall, her face impassive. "History is a matter of perspective, Sylvia, and perspective usually depends on who controls the narrative." Sylvia laughed hollowly, her eyes glinting with hatred. "Narrative, Elena. Everyone here remembers how Eleanor threw you out after you were caught with another man in the house while Adrian was away. Isn't it shameful to come back here with money from God knows where after committing such an act of adultery?" A few women around them began to whisper. Elena could feel the old wound reopening, the shame, devastation, and despair of that night hitting her again. She remembered begging on her knees for Adrian to believe that the man in her room was a setup, but Adrian had only looked at her with disgust. But this Elena was no longer that weak woman. She took a deep breath, steadying the tremor in her hands. "Adultery," Elena repeated the word with a tone of pity. "It's funny hearing that word from the mouth of a woman who spent years as my husband's mistress while I was still his legal wife. If we're going to talk about morals, Sylvia, let's start with how you moved into that house before my side of the bed was even cold." Sylvia's face turned beet red. You're just trying to change the subject. Everyone knows you were kicked out for being filthy." Elena took one step closer, making Sylvia instinctively retreat. "Listen carefully. I was kicked out based on a lie so amateurishly crafted it's laughable. And I'm back today not to apologize for something I never did, but to audit the foundation you run with the same level of amateurism you used to frame me." Elena pulled a small file from her purse and placed it on the central table right in front of Sylvia's teacup. "This is a preliminary report from my audit team who worked through the night. There's a $2 million discrepancy in the annual report you signed, Sylvia. As the primary investor, I have every right to report this as criminal embezzlement," Elena stated calmly, but her voice carried the force of an explosion. The whispers in the room shifted direction. Now the guests' eyes were on Sylvia, their gazes judgmental. Sylvia trembled, looking for support from her friends, but they all turned away. "You think you can buy honor with your money," Sylvia shrieked in desperation. "Honor isn't bought, Sylvia. It's built on integrity. Something you lacked when you took another woman's husband and something you lack now as you use foundation money to buy that designer handbag you're carrying." Elena glanced at Sylvia's handbag with disdain. That bag was worth 3 months of an orphanage's operating costs, deeply ironic for the daily chairperson of a charitable foundation. Elena turned, signaling Maya it was time to leave. She had won this battle, but her heart still felt heavy. The victory was hollow because at the far end of the room she saw Eleanor standing in the doorway, glaring at her with pure hatred. Eleanor said nothing, but her eyes promised a more vicious attack to come. Returning home, Elena found Adrian standing in front of her gate, looking anxious. "Elena, please don't attack Sylvia like that in public. She's still my wife now," Adrian said as Elena got out of the car. Elena looked at her ex-husband with indescribable disgust. "She's your wife, but she used my name as a punchline. Where were you 15 years ago when your mother dragged me into the street, Adrian? Where was your defense then? I just want us all to have some peace. My mother is old. She can't handle a scandal like this," Adrian pleaded weakly. "Your mother can't handle a scandal, but she was strong enough to destroy my life." Elena laughed bitterly. "Go away, Adrian. If you want to save your wife, teach her to keep her mouth shut. Because if she utters the word adultery one more time, I will personally ensure she's sleeping behind bars for embezzlement." Adrian hung his head and walked away defeated, but a new emotional pressure arose when Elena entered the house. She found Liam standing in the living room, holding an old photograph that had fallen from one of Elena's storage boxes. It was a photo of Elena when she was pregnant. "Mom," Liam's voice trembled. "Why do you look so sad in this picture? And who is this man next to you? He looks just like the man who was talking to you at the gate just now." Elena froze. She wasn't ready to explain to Liam who his father was, let alone the fact that Liam wasn't her biological son. But seeing the curiosity in Liam's eyes, Elena realized she had just opened a very dangerous Pandora's box. "That's just the past, Liam. A past that's dead," Elena answered curtly, trying to take the photo. "But it looks like that past is trying to come back to life," Mom, Liam retorted sharply. Elena realized that by living directly across from Eleanor's house, she was not only threatening her enemies but also risking the one thing she cherished most, Liam's trust. She made another small, risky decision. She would continue to involve Liam in the Foundation's affairs, hoping he would see the family's corruption for himself before the truth about his own identity was revealed. But she didn't know if Liam would still be on her side once he knew who his real mother was. Liam's question about the man in the photograph, Adrian, still hung in the air like a thick, stubborn fog. Elena had spent the night staring at the ceiling, her hand instinctively rubbing her now flat stomach. 15 years ago, a life she had guarded with all her being had been in there only to be forcefully ripped away by the hands she once considered family. The greatest irony of her life was the young man who had just placed a warm glass of milk on her desk. Liam was not the fetus she had once caressed in her womb. "You didn't sleep well again, Mom." Liam stood at the doorway of Elena's home office, his gaze filled with sincere concern. "If you're tired because of the Foundation, let me help you organize the files. You should rest for a bit." Elena looked at Liam. His face was so clear, reflecting the empathy and discipline she had instilled in him. Biologically, however, Liam was the son of Sylvia, the woman who had destroyed her marriage. Elena often wondered if this was a blessing or a curse. She had raised her enemy's child into an extraordinary human being, while she had no idea what had become of her own son in the hands of those cruel people. "I'm fine, Liam." "Just a lot on my mind," Elena replied, closing the audit report. "I have to go to the Ashford Foundation's office today. I want you to come with me. It's time you learned how to deal with people who are only sweet on the surface." Liam nodded obediently. "Of course, Mom. I'll get ready." Elena grabbed her bag, steeling herself. Today wasn't just about a financial audit. It was about finding the missing piece of her soul. The Ashford Foundation headquarters looked magnificent with its grand white pillars, but to Elena, the building felt like a whitewashed tomb. In the lobby, she was met with resentful stares from the staff who had clearly been influenced by Sylvia. Not far from the reception desk, a commotion broke out. A teenage boy was berating an elderly woman, one of the orphanage managers, who was trembling. "I told you I don't want this stupid boxed lunch. I want steak. Are you deaf or something?" the teenager yelled. He then kicked a stack of lunchboxes, sending their contents spilling across the clean marble floor. Elena froze. The teenager was Ryan, the boy she had briefly seen at the gala. From this close, she could clearly see his jawline, so similar to his father's. But the wild, hateful look in his eyes was the product of Eleanor and Sylvia's misguided upbringing. "Ryan, watch your mouth." Sylvia appeared from a hallway, but instead of firmly reprimanding her son, she approached him with a sickeningly indulgent tone. "If you don't like it, honey, Mommy will order from a restaurant for you." "Don't shout, sweetheart, you'll hurt your throat." "You took forever, Mom. I hate this place." "It's full of poor, smelly people," Ryan grumbled, then deliberately stomped on the spilled food before walking away. Elena's heart felt like it was being squeezed by a giant hand. "That's my son," her soul screamed. "My own flesh and blood, the one I prayed every night would grow up to be a good man, has become a little monster with no manners." Ryan walked past Elena without a hint of respect. When their shoulders brushed, he glared. "Move it. You're blocking the way." Liam, standing beside Elena, gently but firmly stopped Ryan by the shoulder. "Hey, speak to my mother with respect. You almost ran into her." Ryan turned, looking Liam up and down with a condescending sneer. "Who are you to tell me what to do in my grandmother's building? Get lost, you charity case." Liam was about to retort, but Elena's hand gripped his arm, stopping him. She looked deep into Ryan's eyes. Behind the arrogance, she saw emptiness. Ryan hadn't been raised with love, but with limitless ego gratification. Sylvia, seeing the interaction, hurried over. Oh, Elena, I'm so sorry. My son Ryan can be a bit expressive. He's the sole heir to this family, so it's natural he has high standards. Elena controlled her ragged breath. High standards are not the same as being rude, Sylvia. If you call that behavior expressive, then you've not only failed as a foundation manager, but you've failed completely as a mother. Sylvia's face tensed. You have no right to talk about parenting. Who is this young man anyway, the product of one of your affairs after you were kicked out? She pointed at Liam with a finger tipped in fiery red nail polish. Liam looked offended but remained calm for his mother's sake. Elena smiled faintly, a smile laced with poison. His name is Liam. He's a son to be very proud of. He's an international mathlete, fluent in 3 languages, and most importantly, he knows how to respect other human beings. Something it seems you could never teach Ryan, even if you had a mountain of gold. Elena then turned from Sylvia and looked at Ryan, who was still standing nearby. Ryan, remember my face. One day you will realize the world doesn't revolve around satisfying your desires. And when that day comes, the person you hate the most might be the only one who can save you. Ryan just sneered and walked out of the building. Elena closed her eyes for a moment. The pain was so real. Seeing the devoted Liam on one side and the broken Ryan on the other, the irony was suffocating. She loved Liam as her son, yet he was the seed of the woman she was currently humiliating. Conversely, she desperately wanted to embrace Ryan as her own, yet he looked at her with disgust. Later that afternoon, Elena was in the Foundation's audit room, having demanded all original files be brought there. In the middle of the document piles, Eleanor entered her steps, slow but full of authority. The old woman closed the door behind her. Eleanor called her voice no longer shrill but heavy with a hidden threat. What are you really looking for? If it's about money, name your price. Just stop interfering with how we raise my grandson. Elena didn't look up from her files. Your money isn't enough to buy my interest, Mrs. Ashford. I'm here for the truth. And as for Ryan, you are destroying his future by letting him run wild. He is Adrian's son. He has the family's blue blood. Eleanor slammed her hand on the table. He must be strong, feared, so that lowlifes like you can never bring him down. Elena finally looked up at Eleanor. Blue blood. Really? Are you so sure the blood flowing through Ryan's veins is the blood you so desire? What if one day that very blood becomes the dagger that pierces your own heart? Eleanor fell silent, her eyes flashing with alarm. She felt Elena knew something, but she wasn't sure how much. Don't speak in riddles with me. This isn't a riddle, Mrs. Ashford. It's a warning. Elena stood up, gathering her things. Starting tomorrow, I'm sending a private tutor and a behavioral coach for Ryan. If this foundation wants my funding to continue, Ryan must be under my supervision for 3 hours every day in this office. Eleanor was stunned. You're insane. Sylvia will never agree. Then the choice is yours. A $50 million grant and the survival of your foundation or Sylvia's ego. I'll expect your answer tomorrow morning. Elena walked out of the room with a storm of emotions inside her. She had made a huge, risky decision. By bringing Ryan closer, she risked Sylvia attacking her even more ferociously, but she had no choice. She had to save Ryan from the demonic upbringing of Eleanor and Sylvia, even if she had to do it under the guise of a cold investor. In the parking garage, Liam was already waiting in the car. When Elena got in, Liam handed her a bottle of water, the cap already opened. Drink this, Mom. You look very pale. Elena took the bottle, looking at Liam's clean, capable hands. Forgive me, Liam, she whispered inwardly. I have to bring your enemy into our lives to atone for a past sin that isn't even your fault. The deal was sealed. Despite Sylvia's shrieks of protest and Eleanor's stone-faced silence, the power of $50 million from Sterling Holdings was undeniable. The Ashford Foundation was now Elena's playground, and Ryan, her estranged biological son, was the target of her rescue mission. The next morning, Elena arrived early. She sat in the glass-walled conference room that overlooked the main corridor. Beside her, Liam was diligently helping Maya check the orphanage's inventory reports. Elena watched how Liam meticulously organized stacks of paper, occasionally making neat, decisive notes. Every movement reflected the discipline she had instilled in him from a young age. The corridor doors burst open. Ryan shuffled in, wearing his school uniform untucked and with earbuds blasting in his ears. Behind him, Adrian followed with a tired expression, carrying his son's backpack, which the teenager should have been carrying himself. Sit there, Ryan. Mrs. Vance is already waiting for you, Adrian ordered quietly, trying to suppress his anger in public. Ryan grunted, throwing himself onto a plush chair in front of Elena and propping his feet up on the table. 3 hours a day. You think I'm some kindergartner who needs a babysitter? I don't need your money. Elena didn't respond immediately. She looked at Ryan's feet, dirtying her conference table, then turned to Adrian, who stood frozen in the doorway. Adrian, is this how your respectable family raises its heir? In my office, not even a director would dare put their feet on the conference table. Adrian approached his face, flushing with embarrassment. Ryan, get your feet down, now. Ryan laughed mockingly, but slowly lowered his feet, intimidated by Elena's cold, piercing gaze, as if she could see straight into his rotten core. Liam, Elena called calmly. Liam immediately stood from his desk in the corner and came over. Yes, Mom. Please show Ryan the files he needs to study on basic etiquette and the history of this foundation. Make sure he doesn't touch his phone during this session, Elena instructed. Liam nodded, then looked at Ryan with an unreadable expression, a mix of pity and firmness. Let's begin, Ryan. The sooner you learn, the sooner you can leave. Ryan glared at Liam with hatred. Don't act like you can order me around, you charity case. His name is Liam, Elena interjected sharply, and he has a family name far more honorable than the behavior you're displaying today. Adrian, still standing there, was silent as he watched the two teenagers interact. Something bothered him. He looked at Liam. The young man stood tall, exactly like Adrian himself as a youth. Even the way Liam held his pen and the furrow in his brow when he concentrated strongly reminded Adrian of his own teenage photos. On the other hand, there was Ryan. Ryan's face resembled his, but his personality bore no resemblance whatsoever. Adrian had been raised with strict manners while Ryan was the product of Sylvia's boundless indulgence. Why does Liam, the boy Elena brought back, feel more like my son than Ryan does? An hour passed, and Adrian didn't leave. He sat in the outer lobby, watching through a crack in the door. He saw Liam patiently explaining points in the files to a constantly grumbling Ryan. When Ryan threw his pen in frustration, Liam didn't respond with anger. He simply picked it up, placed it back in Ryan's hand, and spoke in a very calm, yet authoritative tone. That trait, that composure, it couldn't have come from a stranger, Adrian muttered to himself. Suddenly, Eleanor appeared behind Adrian, looking agitated. She saw what Adrian was seeing, and a great fear began to grip her. Eleanor saw how Elena would occasionally steal glances at Ryan, her eyes glistening. It wasn't the look of a cold investor, but the look of a grieving mother. Adrian, why are you still here? Let's go, let the staff watch. Ryan, Eleanor urged, her voice trembling slightly. Mother, look at Liam, Adrian pointed. Don't you find it strange, the way he talks, the way he thinks? He's so much like me. Meanwhile, Ryan, sometimes I feel like I'm looking at a stranger in my son's body. Eleanor's heart felt like it stopped. This was the time bomb she had feared most. Don't talk nonsense, Adrian. Ryan is clearly your and Sylvia's son. He's just being rebellious. Genetics isn't always about personality. It's about bloodline. But Mother, enough. Don't let Elena brainwash you, Eleanor snapped a little too loudly, her voice carrying into the room. Elena emerged from the conference room, looking at the mother and son with a satirical smile. Is there a problem, Mrs. Ashford? It seems you're very afraid. My son Liam will be a bad influence on your precious grandson. Eleanor approached Elena, lowering her voice so Liam and Ryan couldn't hear. What is your real plan, Elena? You came back with that boy, infiltrated our foundation. Are you trying to plant seeds of doubt in my family? Elena leaned in close to Eleanor's ear, whispering words that made the old woman's hair stand on end. Doubt only arises when there are lies to hide, madam. If your family is so clean, why do you tremble every time I look at Ryan? Eleanor took a step back, her breathing ragged. She watched Elena go back into the room and sit right next to Ryan, as if wanting to be as close as possible to the teenager. Something inside Eleanor screamed. She had to get Liam out of Adrian's sight before the man started counting back the days to 15 years ago. Later that afternoon, after the session ended, Ryan stormed out, his face flushed. He ran to Sylvia's car, which was waiting in the parking lot. Sylvia, seeing her son's distress, immediately got out and confronted Elena, who was walking to her own car. What did you do to my son? Sylvia shrieked in front of the foundation employees. You're an investor, not a teacher. Don't you dare mess with my son's mind with your stupid rules. Elena stopped, turning slowly. She saw Liam standing behind her, ready to defend her, but she raised a hand, signaling him to stay quiet. I was only teaching him about self-respect, Sylvia. Something you failed to give him because you were too busy teaching him how to be a parasite, Elena replied calmly. You think you're so great with your money. You're still the adulteress who was thrown out of here. Don't think bringing this boy will get Adrian's attention again, Sylvia spat, pointing at Liam with pure hatred. Liam stepped forward, his voice polite but laced with a threat. Ma'am, please watch what you say about my mother. If you speak that way again, I will personally ensure the embezzlement report reaches the district attorney's office today. Sylvia was silenced instantly. She stared at Liam with a mixture of fear and a strange sense of familiarity. She saw her own eyes in his sharp and unyielding, but she quickly dismissed the thought. Impossible. My baby was a boy and Ryan is a boy. Everything went according to Eleanor's plan. Elena got into her car, her mind in turmoil. Seeing Ryan's hatred for her was a torture worse than the poverty she had endured. But she had noticed something in Adrian and Eleanor's reactions today. The secret was starting to crack. Mom, Liam called as the car started moving. Why did that old woman keep staring at me like I was a ghost? Elena gripped her purse tightly. Because to them, your presence is a reminder of a sin they thought was buried. What does that have to do with me, Mom? Liam asked again, starting to feel that something was being hidden from him. Elena was silent for a long time. She knew staying here would only make Liam more suspicious. But she had to make one more bold move to bait Eleanor into making a mistake. Liam, starting next week, I want you to transfer to the same school as Ryan, Elena said suddenly. Maya, who was driving, flinched. Elena, that's too dangerous. Sylvia could hurt him there. That's where the real battlefield is, Elena replied coldly. I want Liam in their innermost circle. I want Adrian to see Liam every day, to compare every breath he takes with Ryan's, until that man has no choice but to find out the truth for himself. It was Elena's biggest gamble yet. She was placing Liam, the most precious thing she had, right into the wolf's den. Her inner conflict piqued the desire to protect Liam versus the drive to uncover the truth for Ryan. Elena knew that after tonight, Liam's life would never be peaceful again. The unease had settled over Elena ever since she enrolled Liam in the same elite private school as Ryan. Every morning when she sent Liam off, she felt like she was tossing a diamond into the mud. But above all, one memory haunted her that stormy night 15 years ago at the maternity ward of Mercy General Hospital. The night Eleanor announced Elena's baby had been born, but in the same breath accused her of adultery and called the baby a stain. Elena needed a witness, someone not bound by loyalty to Eleanor's money. Maya, did you find his address? Elena asked, staring at the raindrops on the car window. Maya, who was driving, nodded slowly, her face showing concern. On the outskirts of the city, Elena, a slum near the train tracks. His life fell apart after Eleanor fired him 10 years ago. It seems she deliberately discarded him so he couldn't talk. The luxury car finally stopped in front of a narrow, muddy alley. Elena got out, ignoring the dirty water splashing onto her expensive shoes. At the end of the alley, in a nearly collapsed wooden shack, sat an old man with completely white hair. He was Mr. Peterson, the Ashford family's former private driver who used to take Elena to her prenatal appointments. Elena approached, her heart aching at the condition of the man who had always been kind to her. Mr. Peterson. The old man looked up, his blurry eyes trying to focus on the beautiful woman before him. When he recognized her face, he jerked back, almost falling off his wooden chair. His body trembled violently. Ma'am, Mrs. Vance. His voice was hoarse, filled with a deep-seated fear. Go, ma'am, please go. I don't know anything. Don't hurt me again. Elena immediately knelt in front of the old man, oblivious to the dusty floor. Mr. Peterson, calm down. I wasn't sent by Mrs. Ashford. I'm Elena. I'm back, and I'm not here to hurt you. I need your help. Hearing Eleanor's name, Mr. Peterson cowered even more, covering his face with his rough, wrinkled hands. Mrs. Ashford, she said, if I ever spoke, she would destroy my family. I've been silent for 15 years, ma'am. I've already lost everything. You lost your job, but I lost my son. Elena's voice rose, filled with the pain she had suppressed for so long. You were there that night. You drove me to the hospital when my water broke. Please, sir, what really happened after I passed out from childbirth? Mr. Peterson slowly lowered his hands. He looked at Elena with an expression of profound guilt, tears streaming down his hollow cheeks. That night, it was raining so hard. Mrs. Sylvia was there too. She gave birth in the room next door. Prematurely. Elena held her breath, her heart pounding so hard her ears rang. Sylvia. She gave birth on the same night. Mrs. Ashford was furious when she found out Mrs. Sylvia's baby was a boy but was very weak. Mr. Peterson whispered, his voice nearly lost to the sound of a passing train. "But your baby, Mrs. Vance, he was born healthy. A boy, too." Mrs. Ashford didn't want the family's blue blood heir to be born from a mistress like Mrs. Sylvia. "But she hated you, too. She ordered me to guard the back door." "Tell me, sir, what did Mrs. Ashford do?" Elena pressed her own tears, now flowing. She switched them. She paid off a nurse to swap your baby with Mrs. Sylvia's. Then she created that whole adultery story so you would be exiled and could never claim the healthy baby boy. She wanted Ryan, your biological son, to be completely hers without you in the picture. The world seemed to collapse on Elena. The truth was crueler than she had ever imagined. She was cast out not just from hatred, but because she had been the perfect vessel for the male heir Eleanor craved, and her own identity had to be erased for Eleanor to have total control. "And Liam?" Elena asked, her voice trembling. "Liam was the baby Sylvia left behind because he was considered sickly and weak. Mrs. Ashford had him sent to a small orphanage on the outskirts, but somehow you found him again." Mr. Peterson sobbed. "Forgive me, ma'am. I was scared. Mrs. Ashford has people everywhere." Suddenly, a black car stopped at the end of the alley. Seeing it, Mr. Peterson's eyes widened in terror. He scrambled to his feet, ran into his shack, and locked the door from the inside. "Go, ma'am, they're here, don't come back," he yelled from inside. Elena stood up, wiping her tears away fiercely. She saw two burly men get out of the black car, clearly Eleanor's men sent to monitor his every move. Maya quickly grabbed Elena's arm. "Elena, we have to go now." "This isn't safe," she whispered urgently. Elena gave the shack one last look, then stared at the two men, now watching her from a distance. The anger that had been a small flame inside her now erupted into a wildfire. She no longer felt sad. She felt cold, bone-chillingly cold. In the car on the way back, Elena was silent, clutching her phone tightly. She realized her childbirth wasn't just medical malpractice. It was a meticulously planned family conspiracy. Eleanor had stolen her rights to Ryan, manipulated Adrian, and nearly let Liam die in poverty. "Elena, what's your plan?" Maya asked after they were a safe distance away. "Eleanor thinks she can watch Mr. Peterson forever," Elena replied flatly. "She's wrong. She's watching him because she's terrified he'll talk. Tonight, move Mr. Peterson to our safe house out of state. Give him the best protection. He is the dagger I will use to slit Eleanor's pride in court. But that's risky, Elena. Eleanor will know it was you. She'll go after Liam at school," Maya warned. Elena turned to Maya, her eyes glinting sharply. "Let her try. Every time she touches a hair on Liam's head, I will destroy one of her foundation's assets. I'm done playing nice, Maya. I am the hurricane they invited themselves 15 years ago." A small but risky decision was made by Elena that night. She not only secured Mr. Peterson but also sent an anonymous message to Adrian with a photo of the old maternity ward. She wanted him to be haunted by an unbearable curiosity. When she got home, Elena saw Liam studying in the living room. He looked up and smiled sincerely. "Mom, where have you been? Your face is smudged with mud." Elena walked over and hugged Liam tightly, more tightly than usual. Liam, the son of the woman who destroyed her life, had become the balm for her wounds. The irony was suffocating, but Elena knew Liam was still her son, regardless of whose blood flowed in his veins. As for Ryan, she had to save him from the grandmother who had poisoned his soul. The silence in Elena's house this morning was oppressive, as if the very walls held the weight of the secret she had brought back from Mr. Peterson's shack. Elena stood at the kitchen sink, letting the water run over her still trembling hands. In her mind, Mr. Peterson's voice echoed. "Mrs. Ashford ordered me to guard the back door." She switched the babies. Elena closed her eyes. A wave of nausea washed over her as she realized that for 15 years she had poured all her love into the child of the woman who had stolen everything from her. She looked at Liam, who was calmly eating his breakfast at the table. Liam, so intelligent and polite, was the trash Eleanor had thrown away for being weak. Meanwhile, Ryan, her own flesh and blood, was now a dull, rusted weapon under Sylvia's care. "Mom, the water's overflowing." Liam's gentle reprimand snapped Elena back to reality. She quickly turned off the faucet. "Sorry, sweetie. I was just lost in thought." "Were you thinking about Ryan?" Liam asked suddenly. The question froze Elena. Liam had a sharp intuition that often left her feeling exposed. "Yesterday at school, Ryan scribbled all over my notebook. He said as long as he has Grandma Eleanor, he can do whatever he wants to me." Elena turned back, gripping the edge of the sink until her knuckles turned white. "What did you do, Liam?" "I just picked up my book and told him his grandmother's protection wouldn't last forever," Liam answered calmly. "But Mom..." Ryan looks so lonely. Behind all his yelling, he looks like someone who's crying for help. Liam's words pierced Elena's heart. Crying for help, of course he is. Ryan was trapped in a golden cage built on lies. Elena felt an impulsive urge to go over there, hug Ryan, and tell him she was his mother. But her rational mind held her back. If she moved without irrefutable proof, Eleanor would easily destroy her again. Meanwhile, in the Grand Ashford residence, the atmosphere was far from calm. Eleanor paced in her study after receiving a report that Mr. Peterson had vanished from his shack. She knew exactly who was responsible. "Sylvia!" Eleanor yelled. Sylvia entered with an anxious face. Since Elena's return, her position in the house had become precarious. Adrian was starting to ignore her, and Eleanor was yelling at her more frequently. "Elena has found Mr. Peterson." "We don't have much time," Eleanor said in a low, threatening voice. "If Adrian finds out what we did that night, we'll both end up on the street. You know what you have to do." "But Mother, what can I do? Elena has money and power now," Sylvia whined. Eleanor grabbed Sylvia's shoulders, her sharp nails digging in. "Use Ryan. Elena has a weakness for that boy. I see the way she looks at him. It's not the look of a stranger. Create a scenario that makes Elena look like the villain in front of Adrian. Make it seem like she's trying to kidnap or harm Ryan. Keep him away from that woman by any means necessary." Sylvia nodded quickly, a crazy idea forming in her head. If she could make Adrian believe Elena was a threat to Ryan's safety, he would surely banish Elena from the city forever. That afternoon, in front of Ryan and Liam's school, Sylvia executed her plan. Elena was waiting for Liam in her car when she saw Ryan walking out of the gate alone, looking sullen. Unconsciously, Elena got out of the car. A mother's longing overcame her business logic. "Ryan," Elena called softly. Ryan turned his eyes, glinting with cynicism but with a hint of curiosity. "What do you want now, Miss Investor? Another lecture?" "I just wanted to give you this," Elena said, holding out a small container with a healthy lunch she had prepared that morning. "I heard you often skip lunch." Ryan looked at the container hesitantly. Just as he was about to reach for it, a shrill scream pierced the air. "Kidnapper, help! Someone's trying to kidnap my son!" Sylvia ran from the parking lot, her face a mask of feigned panic. She roughly pulled Ryan back, nearly making him fall. "Don't touch my son, you filthy woman! Where are you trying to take him?" Parents and school security quickly gathered. Adrian, who happened to be arriving to pick up Ryan on Eleanor's orders, got out of his car, his face tense. "What's going on here, Sylvia?" "Adrian, look, Elena was trying to lure Ryan into her car. She wants to kidnap our son out of revenge for us taking her place," Sylvia cried hysterically, hugging a confused and embarrassed Ryan. "She's a crazy woman, Adrian. She wants to destroy our happiness through Ryan." Adrian looked at Elena, demanding an explanation. "Elena, is what Sylvia said true? Your problem is with me, don't involve Ryan." Elena stood tall in the middle of the crowd. Her heart ached seeing Ryan look at her with the hatred Sylvia had instilled in him, but Elena didn't cry. Instead, she smiled faintly, a smile that made Sylvia abruptly stop screaming. "Kidnap," Elena repeated the word calmly. "Sylvia, you seem to watch too much television drama. I was just offering him lunch. And if you want to talk about security..." Elena pulled out her phone and pressed an app. She turned the screen towards Adrian and the crowd. "My car is equipped with 360-degree cameras that record all activity within a 30-foot radius, complete with crystal-clear audio. Let's see and hear what really happened." On the screen, it was clear that Elena had just been standing there holding out a lunchbox, and Ryan seemed willing to take it before Sylvia came screaming like a madwoman. Even more damning was the audio that had clearly recorded Sylvia whispering to herself before she screamed, "Now's the time to destroy you, Elena." The crowd fell silent. Sylvia turned pale, her hands shaking. "Adrian, it's not what it looks like," she stammered. Adrian took Elena's phone, watched the video again, and then looked at his wife with a disgust he had never shown before. "You framed her in front of our son's school. You humiliated Ryan just for your own ego, Sylvia." "I was just scared, Adrian. I was scared she would take Ryan from me." Sylvia tried to defend herself, but Adrian wouldn't listen. "Enough. Get Ryan in the car." "Now," Adrian barked. Ryan roughly shook off Sylvia's hand. He looked at his mother, the woman he had idolized, with deep disappointment. Then he glanced at Elena for a moment. There was an unreadable flicker of emotion in the teenager's eyes before he got into the car, slamming the door. Adrian stood before Elena, his head bowed in shame. "Elena, I'm sorry for Sylvia's behavior. She's been a bit emotional lately." "Emotional doesn't give her the right to be cruel, Adrian," Elena replied coldly. "You should start wondering if she could frame me so easily today. What other lies did she whisper in your ear 15 years ago?" Adrian was speechless. Elena's words struck his awakening conscience. Elena turned and got into her car just as Liam arrived. Inside, she rested her head on the steering wheel. This small victory brought her no relief. She felt even more guilty towards Ryan for letting him witness this mess. "You did the right thing, Mom," Liam whispered, taking Elena's hand. "Did I, Liam? I feel like I'm tearing their lives apart, but Ryan is getting hurt in the process," Elena said softly. As they drove past Eleanor's house, Elena knew that Eleanor's next attack would be even more brutal. A new, risky idea formed in her mind. She needed to contact her private lawyer. She couldn't wait for Mr. Peterson to testify. She had to provoke Sylvia into making an even bigger financial mistake. Maya Elena called via speakerphone. "Contact our real estate broker. Tell them we're interested in buying the foundation's asset that Sylvia used as collateral at First National Bank. I want to pull that orphanage land out from under them by next week." Elena knew that by taking the orphanage land, she would be threatening hundreds of orphans and creating a massive scandal for Eleanor. But it was the only way to force Eleanor to her knees and admit who Ryan really was. Elena's inner turmoil peaked. Was she willing to become a villain to restore the truth? The fallout from the incident at school left a huge crack in the Ashford family's mask of perfection. Elena sat on her balcony sipping bitter tea while staring at the gates across the street. She could faintly hear shouting from inside the mansion. It was nothing new. Since Sylvia's manipulation was exposed, the grand house had become a war zone. Elena put down her cup, feeling no peace. Though her plan was working every time she heard Sylvia yell at Ryan in the distance, a piece of her soul was torn. She was destroying Sylvia, yes, but she was also placing Ryan, her own flesh and blood, at the epicenter of the storm. "Mom, they're so loud I can hear them in my room," said Liam, suddenly appearing beside her. He held a notebook, but his face was troubled. "Why is Mrs. Sylvia always so angry at Ryan? Isn't he her son?" Elena swallowed a bitter lump in her throat. "Sometimes, Liam, people who feel cornered will bite whoever is closest to them, even their own child." "I feel sorry for Ryan," Liam whispered. "At school today, he just sat in the corner of the classroom. He wasn't yelling anymore. He just looked empty." Elena turned her face away, not wanting Liam to see her eyes welling up with tears. Pity, that was the emotion she had most tried to avoid feeling for Ryan. But now it was Liam, the one who should hate Ryan, who felt it. Elena knew she had to end this soon, or Ryan would be destroyed before she could save him. Across the street, in the luxurious Ashford living room, a plate shattered on the marble floor. Adrian stood breathing heavily, pointing at a stack of credit card bills on the table. $500,000 in 1 month. Sylvia. For handbags and jewelry, Adrian's voice boomed. "Our company is facing a cash flow crisis because of the audit from Sterling Holdings, and you're spending money like we own a gold mine." Sylvia fought back, her usually beautiful face now rigid with anger. "I need it to maintain our image. Why do you think the board members' wives are still talking to you after Elena humiliated me at school? It's because I still look the part. You're a weak man, Adrian. If you can't provide for me, don't blame me." Weak, Adrian laughed bitterly. "I was strong enough to endure the shame of that fake kidnapping stunt you pulled. You almost ruined Ryan's reputation." "Ryan this, Ryan that," Sylvia whirled towards the staircase where Ryan stood frozen watching them. "You see that boy? He's becoming just like Elena. He's defiant, useless. I should have never—" "Never," what Eleanor's cold voice cut in from the hallway. She entered with her cane, her eyes fixed on Sylvia. Eleanor knew Sylvia had been on the verge of spilling the secret about the baby swap. "Go to your room, Ryan. Now." Ryan ran upstairs without a sound. Adrian sank onto the sofa, massaging his temples. The mental exhaustion was clear in his slumped shoulders. Just then, his phone on the table vibrated. A text from his secretary. "Mr. Ashford, Mrs. Vance from Sterling Holdings has invited you for a private meeting at her office this afternoon. She said it's regarding a way to save your company's assets." Adrian stared at the message like a drowning man seeing a life raft. He glanced at Sylvia, still ranting, and his mother still pressuring him. He needed a way out, and ironically, it was being offered by the woman he had thrown away. That afternoon, Elena greeted Adrian in her spacious, minimalist office. She had intentionally arranged the lighting to be intimidating, yet professional. She wore an all-black outfit exuding a power Adrian had never imagined. "Sit down, Adrian," Elena said, skipping any offer of a handshake. Adrian sat awkwardly. "Thank you for seeing me, Elena. I know things are bad between us, but I need to speak professionally about the foundation and my logistics company." Elena slid a document across the table. "Your logistics company is on the brink of bankruptcy, Adrian. My audit found that Sylvia has been illegally withdrawing company funds to support her lifestyle and cover losses at the foundation. If the banks find out, they'll foreclose on your mother's house by next week." Adrian's face went white. "How do you know all this?" "I have eyes everywhere," Elena replied coolly. "I'm offering you a partnership. Sterling Holdings will inject fresh capital to cover all your debts. In return, I want a 51% controlling stake in your company and full control over the foundation's financial management." Adrian was aghast. "That means you'll be controlling my life." Elena leaned forward, looking Adrian directly in the eye. "I'm not interested in controlling your messy life, Adrian. I'm interested in its assets. But you have a choice: lose everything and let your mother live on the street, or work under my direction and save what's left of your family's dignity." Adrian was silent for a long time. The silence in the room was suffocating. He no longer saw Elena as the woman he had loved or hurt, but as the master of his fate. The image of a wasteful Sylvia and a demanding Eleanor made him sick. "Fine," Adrian whispered finally. "I agree, but please don't let Sylvia know about the details of the shares. She'll go crazy." Elena smiled faintly, a bitter, victorious smile. "She'll find out in due time. Now sign this." That night after Adrian left, Maya entered Elena's office. "You've just ensnared him, Elena. He's completely dependent on you now. But are you sure this is safe? Bringing Adrian this close could be dangerous for Liam." Elena stood by the window looking at the city lights. "Adrian is already starting to compare Liam and Ryan. With him working under me, he'll see Liam more often. I want that guilt to eat away at him slowly until he's the one begging for a DNA test without me having to ask." "But Sylvia won't stand by quietly," Maya warned. "That's exactly my goal. I want Sylvia to make another reckless move," Elena replied. Her mind was in turmoil as she returned home. In the living room, she saw Liam teaching math to Ryan, who had apparently snuck in through the back door. Ryan looked awkward, but was listening intently. "Ryan, why are you here?" Elena asked, trying to keep her tone neutral though. Her heart pounded at the sight of her biological son in her home. Ryan stood up, his face showing fear. I was just bored at home. Mom and Dad are always screaming. Liam said I could come over." Elena looked at Ryan. His hair was messy and there was a red mark on his arm, likely from Sylvia's grip during their fight. A furious rage welled up in Elena, but also fear. If Eleanor knew Ryan was here, she would use it as a weapon to accuse Elena of brainwashing him. "Go back to your house, Ryan, now," Elena said, her voice deliberately harsh even as her heart screamed to hold him. "But Mom, it's pouring rain outside," Liam protested. "I said go back," Elena snapped, making both teenagers jump. Ryan looked at Elena with a deeply wounded expression. "You're right, you're just like them. You only care about your own rules." He ran out, dashing through the rain. Elena sank into a chair, covering her face with her hands. She had just driven away her own son in his moment of vulnerability to protect the secrecy of her plan. Her emotional pressure reached a new, agonizing peak. She was destroying her enemies, but at the same time she was killing the affection in her own son's eyes. A small, risky decision was made that night. She would start sending people to watch over Ryan's physical safety inside Eleanor's house, even if it meant resorting to illegal surveillance. The remnants of last night's rain still clung to the asphalt, just like the suffocating feeling in Elena's chest. The image of Ryan running through the storm after she had harshly sent him away replayed endlessly in her mind. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw his wounded expression, a look she should never have caused her own son. But Elena knew that in that house the walls had ears. Eleanor and Sylvia were surely watching. She had to maintain the facade of a heartless stranger so they wouldn't suspect she knew the truth. That morning, Maya entered Elena's office, her face pale. She wasn't carrying audit reports or shared documents, just her phone held in a slightly trembling hand. "Elena, it's Mr. Peterson," Maya whispered. "He's in critical condition. He had a heart attack this morning at the safe house. He keeps calling your name. He says there's something he needs to tell you." Elena's heart dropped. Without a second thought, she abandoned her work. The entire drive to the secret clinic on the city's outskirts, Elena could only pray. Mr. Peterson was the last living witness to that cursed night 15 years ago. If he died now, the truth might be buried forever under the concrete of Eleanor's power. When Elena arrived at the small hidden ward, the sharp smell of antiseptic greeted her. Mr. Peterson lay weakly, an oxygen tube in his nose. His sunken eyes slowly opened. Sensing Elena's presence, he moved a trembling hand under his pillow and pulled out a faded, yellowed-brown envelope. "Ma'am," Mr. Peterson's voice was barely a whisper, like rustling paper. I couldn't take this to my grave. It's proof. From that night, the nurse, Mrs. Ashford, paid off. She wrote a confession, out of fear. She gave it to me before she disappeared overseas." Elena took the envelope with cold hands. Inside was a worn slip of paper with hurried handwriting. Its contents shattered the last of her emotional defenses. "I was forced by Mrs. Eleanor Ashford to switch Mrs. Elena Vance's baby boy, born at 1:05 p.m., with Mrs. Sylvia Ashford's premature baby boy, born at 11:45 p.m. Mrs. Vance's baby Ryan was given to Mrs. Sylvia to claim as her own, to preserve the primary male bloodline. Meanwhile, Mrs. Sylvia's weak baby Liam was ordered to be discarded at an orphanage, so Mrs. Vance would have no proof of her husband's biological child. The world around Elena seemed to stop. The beeping of the heart monitor sounded like a series of explosions in her ears. She sank weakly onto a wooden chair, silent tears falling onto the old paper. Reality hit her with its full, brutal force. For 15 years, she had raised the child of the woman who destroyed her life. Liam, the young man she loved more than life itself, was the biological son of Sylvia, the woman who had stolen her husband and framed her for adultery. And Ryan, the son she had longed for, the son she had just chased into the rain, was her own flesh and blood, now a broken little monster because of Eleanor's toxic influence. "Elena." Maya touched her shoulder, her voice full of concern. Elena didn't answer. She just handed the letter to Maya. As Maya read it, her hand flew to her mouth in shock. "My God," Maya whispered. "So Liam is Sylvia's son, and you raised him so perfectly while Sylvia ruined your own son." Elena's voice was hoarse, filled with a boiling hatred. She didn't just swap babies, she swapped their fates. She threw Liam away because she deemed him weak, worthless. And she stole Ryan from me just because he was born physically perfect. Elena's thoughts flew to Liam. She remembered how he always kissed her hand before school, how he took care of her when she was sick, how he was her reason for living during her darkest times. An unbearable pain stabbed at her heart. Was she supposed to hate Liam now? Was she supposed to see Sylvia's face every time she looked into his eyes? Elena shot to her feet, her breathing ragged. She stormed out of the clinic, ignoring Maya's calls. She needed air. She needed time to process the fact that the identity of mother she had carried was a cruel, twisted irony. Later that afternoon, Elena returned home. She saw Liam in the front yard, calmly watering her favorite flowers. The evening sun illuminated his face, making him look so pure. Elena stood at the gate, watching him from afar. She searched for a resemblance to Sylvia. She saw the shape of his nose, the way he furrowed his brow. It all pointed to Sylvia and Adrian's blood running through his veins. Liam noticed her and immediately stood up with a wide smile. "Mom, you're home. Look, the white roses are blooming." Liam walked over, about to take Elena's bag, but she instinctively took a step back, her hands clenching into fists. Liam stopped, his smile slowly fading, replaced by a look of confusion. "Mom, what's wrong? Did I do something wrong?" Elena looked into Liam's eyes. She didn't see Sylvia, she didn't see Adrian. She saw herself. She saw the years they spent in a tiny apartment. She saw their struggles when they had no money for food. And she saw the unconditional love Liam gave her every day. Suddenly, Elena pulled Liam into a hug. She held him desperately tight, sobbing into his shoulder. A confused Liam stood still for a moment, then slowly returned the hug, gently rubbing her back. "Mom, I love you, Liam, so much," she whispered between sobs. In her heart, Elena made a solemn vow. "You may not be my flesh and blood, Liam, but you are my son. The soul I shaped is mine. I will not let Eleanor or Sylvia touch you, even if they are your biological family." But that love was now mixed with a terrifying new fear. If Eleanor knew Elena had the confession, she would surely try to eliminate Mr. Peterson or even Liam to erase all traces. And worse, Elena now had to face Ryan. How could she take him back without breaking Liam's heart? Elena released the hug, looking at Liam with red eyes. "Liam, I need your help." Tomorrow, I want you to invite Ryan over again. Ignore what I said last night. Tell him I want to talk to him privately." Liam looked hesitant. "But Mom, you were so angry yesterday." "Just do it, sweetie." "I need to fix something that's broken," Elena said firmly. That night, after Liam was asleep, Elena sat in her dark office. She held a small baggie containing a sample of Ryan's hair, which she had secretly taken from a comb left at the foundation office. She also took a sample of Liam's hair from a brush in the bathroom. She had decided on a small but incredibly risky step. She would run a formal DNA test through an international lab that couldn't be bribed by Eleanor. She needed irrefutable medical proof to supplement Mr. Peterson's letter. But she realized one thing. Once those test results came back, her life could never go back to the way it was. She would be starting an open war that could destroy the psyche of both teenagers. Elena looked at photos of Ryan and Liam one after the other. Her emotional pressure was at its boiling point. She held the key to the truth, but that truth was also dynamite, ready to blow up the happiness of Liam, the only thing she'd had for the last 15 years. The morning was wrapped in a suffocating silence. Though the sun peeked through the curtains, the chill in Elena's heart remained. The worn letter from Mr. Peterson, now locked in her private safe, felt like a burning coal in her conscience. Every time her eyes met Liam's, her chest ached. How could a mother not recognize her own flesh and blood for 15 years? Elena stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror. She saw a strong woman, a feared investor, but behind it all, she felt like a fraud. She loved Liam with her entire soul, yet now she knew the young man preparing breakfast downstairs was the seed of the woman who had destroyed her life. "Mom, the omelets are ready," Liam's cheerful voice echoed from downstairs. Elena splashed cold water on her face. She had to act normal. She had to be the calm, protective Elena. She couldn't let Liam sense the fear coursing through her veins. Down in the dining room, she saw Liam setting the table. His movements were so gentle, a stark contrast to Sylvia's harsh, explosive nature. Elena sat, forcing a smile. "You look pale, Mom." "Did you have another sleepless night worrying about the deal with Mr. Ashford?" Liam asked, handing her a glass of warm milk. "Just a lot of documents to review, sweetie," Elena replied curtly, taking a sip and avoiding his gaze. "Remember what I asked last night? Invite Ryan over after school. Tell him I want to apologize for what happened in the rain." Liam nodded, though the furrow in his brow showed he was still confused by his mother's sudden change in attitude. "I already texted him, Mom. He said he'll come, but he asked that Mr. Ashford and Grandma Eleanor don't find out." "Good. That's even better," Elena whispered. That afternoon, the tension in Sterling Holdings' office was palpable. Elena locked her office door. On her desk lay two small, transparent plastic baggies. One contained Liam's hair taken that morning. The other was still empty, waiting for a sample from Ryan. Maya entered through a secret connecting door, her face etched with the same anxiety. "The lab in Singapore is ready, Elena. As soon as you get Ryan's sample, a special courier will take it on the next flight out. The results will be back in 3 days." 3 days, Elena murmured. 3 days to prove my entire life has been a monumental lie. "Elena, you have to be prepared for anything," Maya warned softly. "If Ryan really is your son, how are you going to tell Liam? He idolizes you. You're his whole world." Elena squeezed her eyes shut. "That's what terrifies me most, Maya. I'm afraid that in gaining my biological son, I'll lose the son who has called me Mom all these years." The planned meeting arrived. That afternoon, Ryan came to Elena's house, his demeanor still arrogant but his steps hesitant. He wore a black hoodie trying to hide his face. Liam greeted him at the door and led him into the living room. Elena stood there, her heart racing. Seeing Ryan up close after knowing the truth made her want to run and embrace him. She wanted to study every inch of his face, searching for a resemblance to herself she had previously missed, clouded by her hatred for the Ashfords. "Sit down, Ryan," Elena said, her voice trembling slightly. Ryan sat on the sofa, his eyes darting around the elegant yet warm room. "I don't have much time. If you're going to insult me again like at the foundation, just get it over with." Elena moved closer, sitting beside him, not across from him. "I don't want to insult you, Ryan. I want to apologize. I was too harsh on you the other night. I just didn't want you to get in trouble with your grandmother if they found out you were here." Ryan was silent, clearly surprised by Elena's gentle tone, a tone he never got from Sylvia or Eleanor. "They don't care about me. They only care if I embarrass the family name." Elena noticed a stray hair on Ryan's forehead. This was her chance. With a natural movement, as if simply tidying his messy bangs, her hand moved. "Your hair is a mess," she whispered. With practiced fingers, she pinched 2 strands of his hair and pulled them with a quick, small tug. "Ow," Ryan yelped, touching his forehead. "What was that for?" "Sorry, it must have gotten caught," Elena said with a calm smile, though her palm was slick with cold sweat. She concealed the hairs in her palm, then quickly slipped them into her blazer pocket, which already held a tissue. Liam entered with drinks, breaking the tension. "Have a drink, Ryan. Mom gets fussy about neatness sometimes." Elena stood up, unable to stay there any longer without breaking down. "You two talk. I have an important call to take upstairs." In her room, Elena immediately took out Ryan's hairs and placed them in the prepared plastic baggie. Her hands shook violently as she labeled it Sample B. She stared at the 2 bags side by side. Sample A, Liam, and Sample B, Ryan. 2 teenagers, 2 swapped fates. Elena collapsed to the floor, her back against the locked door. The sobs she had held back all morning finally broke free. She covered her mouth to muffle the sound. She felt like a monster. She was manipulating both these boys for a truth that might destroy them all. If Ryan knew she was his biological mother, could he forgive her for being so cold to him? And Liam? Would he feel betrayed that she was secretly looking for his replacement? "Mom," a gentle knock on the door made Elena jump. It was Liam. Ryan went home. Mr. Ashford picked him up at the end of the street. "Mom, are you okay? I thought I heard someone crying." Elena quickly wiped her tears, fixed her hair, and cleared her throat. "I'm fine, Liam. Just a little cold. I'm changing. I'll be down in a minute." "Oh, okay. Don't forget to take your medicine. I left some on the dining table." Elena stared at the wooden door, her heart shattered. Liam's kindness felt like a knife twisting in her gut. He loved her so sincerely while she had just sent off a DNA sample to prove that biologically he was nothing to her. That night, Elena handed the 2 envelopes to Maya in the dark backyard. "Send them now, Maya. Don't let anyone know," Elena commanded. "Are you sure, Elena? Once this courier leaves, there's no going back," Maya confirmed. Elena looked up at the light in Liam's window. "I have to know the truth, Maya. Even if that truth burns down the entire world I've built." After Maya left, Elena went back inside. She found Liam in the family room, looking at a photo of the 2 of them celebrating his 10th birthday. "Mom," Liam called without turning around. "No matter what happens, I'll always be your son, right? Lately it feels like you're pulling away from me." Elena froze. Her emotional pressure was at its breaking point. She wanted to scream and tell him everything, but all she could do was walk over and stroke his hair. "I will never leave you, Liam. Never," she said. A promise that felt heavy and full of risk. A small but risky decision was made by Elena that night. She decided she would never cast Liam aside no matter what the DNA test revealed. But that meant she had to be prepared for the worst-case scenario, sharing her love with a son who hated her while keeping a monumental secret from the son who adored her. A new internal war had begun. How could she be a mother to 2 boys destined to be enemies? 3 days of waiting felt like 3 centuries in a cold hell for Elena. She couldn't eat. Every bite felt like swallowing pebbles. She couldn't look Liam in the eye without her chest tightening from a storm of conflicting emotions. This morning, a special diplomatic courier arrived at Sterling Holdings, carrying a thick envelope with the seal of a renowned genetics lab from Singapore. Maya locked Elena's office door from the inside. The room was so quiet that the ticking of the wall clock sounded like a sledgehammer. "Elena, here it is," Maya whispered, placing the envelope on the vast oak desk. Her hand was shaking slightly. "Do you want me to read it?" Elena shook her head slowly. Her face was ashen, but her eyes held a fragile determination. "No. This is either my punishment or my prize. I have to be the one to see it." With cold fingers, Elena tore the seal. She pulled out the crisp white papers inside. Her eyes scanned the complex technical columns, searching for the percentage at the bottom. Probability of maternity sample B. Ryan, 99.9, 9%. Probability of maternity sample A. Liam, 0%. The papers slipped from Elena's grasp, fluttering to the floor like a broken wing. She didn't scream. She froze, her body rigid as if her blood had turned to ice. Then a small sob escaped her lips, followed by an explosive burst of tears. "Eleanor!" "That devil!" Elena moaned, her voice hoarse and wounded. She fell to her knees, burying her face in her hands. Her sobs filled the room, a lament for 15 years of longing, 15 years of misplaced devotion, and 15 years of humiliation she had swallowed whole. "My son Ryan is my son Maya," she cried between sobs. The baby I caressed in my womb, the one I prayed would grow into a good man. Now he's a broken child in their hands. Eleanor stole my baby and used him as a shield for her greed. Elena mourned every lost second. She remembered how she had often looked at Ryan with disdain, called him rude, and chased him into the rain. All the while, every drop of sweat and every tear she shed abroad was to build a future for the son she thought was Liam. And Liam, Elena looked up, her eyes red and swollen. He's Sylvia's son, the son of the woman who crept into my husband's bed and helped get me thrown out like a dog. I raised the seed of a traitor with my own 2 hands. Maya knelt beside Elena, trying to comfort her. But you love Liam, Elena. He's the son you shaped yourself. That's what's destroying me. Maya, Elena pounded the floor in frustration. How can fate be so cruel? I love Liam, who is my enemy's son. Meanwhile, my own biological son looks at me with hatred because he was raised by a monster. Eleanor didn't just swap babies, she swapped their souls. Elena returned home that afternoon with a shattered soul. She saw Liam in the front yard watering her favorite flowers. His movements were so patient, so full of love. He turned and broke into a wide smile when he saw her car pull in. "Mom, you're home. Look, the white roses are in full bloom," Liam said cheerfully. Elena got out of the car, her legs feeling like lead. She looked at Liam's face. She saw Adrian's features there. And God, why was she only noticing it now? The curve of his lips was just like Sylvia's. For 15 years, love had blinded her to this biological reality. "Mom, you're crying." Liam immediately dropped the hose and approached her, his face full of concern. He reached out to touch her forehead. In a reflex she couldn't control, Elena flinched away. The image of Sylvia laughing mockingly at the gala flashed in her mind as she saw Liam's hand. Liam froze, his hand hovering in the air. The hurt on his face was palpable. "Mom, did I do something wrong? Why are you looking at me like I'm a stranger?" Elena turned away, hiding the sob that was about to break free. "You are a stranger, Liam. You are not my blood. You are the son of the woman who destroyed my life," a voice screamed in her head. But at the same time, another part of her whispered, "But he is the son who took care of you when you were starving on the streets of London. He is the son who held you when you cried over Adrian." "I just have a terrible headache, Liam. I need to be alone." "Don't come into my room until tomorrow morning," Elena said, her voice forced and cold. She walked into the house, passing Liam without a second glance. In her room, Elena locked the door and slid to the floor behind it. She clutched her chest, which felt like it was being pierced by 1,000 needles. Now every one of Liam's laughs would be a reminder of Adrian's betrayal. Every one of Liam's achievements would be a reminder of Ryan's loss. Elena felt her world split in 2. One side demanded she seize Ryan immediately and cast Liam back to his biological family as revenge. The other side, the side that had been a mother for 15 years, screamed at the thought of letting go of the young man who had become her very breath. That night, Elena couldn't sleep. She took out a small jewelry box containing a baby bracelet from the hospital, the only thing she had left. She stroked it. Suddenly, she heard a commotion outside. Peeking through the curtains, she saw Adrian's car parked in front of Eleanor's house and Ryan getting out, yelling at his father. "I'm not going in. I hate this house. I hate all of you," Ryan shouted. He then ran across the street and sat on the curb directly in front of Elena's fence, burying his face in his knees. Elena watched the boy from her second-floor window. "That's my son. My flesh and blood is crying in the dark, separated from me only by an iron fence." She wanted to run downstairs, open the door, and say, "Come here, son. This is your real home. I'm your mother." But then she heard the sound of Liam's footsteps in the hall, heading to the kitchen for a drink, still awake, and worried about her strange behavior. Elena was trapped in a terrible dilemma. If she embraced Ryan now, she would have to destroy Liam. If she kept Liam, she was letting Ryan rot in hatred. A small but risky decision was made by Elena that night. She took out her phone and sent a short text to Adrian, who was still standing helplessly at his gate. "Let Ryan stay at my house tonight. I'll take care of him. Don't let Sylvia or your mother come get him if you don't want the secret from 15 years ago exposed right now." Elena put her phone down. She knew that by bringing Ryan into her home while Liam was also there, she was lighting a match in a powder keg. Her emotional pressure peaked. She was about to put her 2 sons under one roof, with neither of them knowing they were standing on the ruins of a swapped destiny. Ryan's presence in Elena's house that night created a suffocating atmosphere. In the living room, Ryan slept on the sofa, his face still marked by anger. Upstairs, Liam lay awake with a million questions he didn't dare ask. Elena herself stood in the dark hallway, looking from one teenager to the other. The DNA results in her desk drawer seemed to throb, radiating a truth that could incinerate anyone who touched it. "Ryan is my son," Elena whispered to her reflection in the window. "And Liam is a daily reminder of his mother's betrayal." The love she had poured entirely into Liam for 15 years was now tainted with bitterness. Every time she looked at Liam, she saw Sylvia. But every time she looked at Ryan, she saw her own failure as a mother who had let her child grow into a broken soul. Elena realized one thing: she couldn't fix this with just love. She had to destroy the source of the infection first: Eleanor. The next day, a formal business meeting was held at Sterling Holdings. Elena had specifically invited Eleanor, ignoring Sylvia and Adrian. She wanted to confront the architect of her suffering directly. Eleanor arrived with a fractured elegance. Her usually steady steps now had a slight drag, and her hand gripping a silver-topped cane had a fine tremor. There was a flicker of fear in her eyes that she tried to mask with upper-class arrogance. "You asked me to come without my son, Elena. Is this a new intimidation tactic?" Eleanor's voice was hoarse. Elena sat in her executive chair regarding Eleanor with the calm of a predator. 2 cups of steaming chamomile tea sat on the table. "Just a casual chat, Mrs. Ashford." As one woman to another who understands the importance of bloodlines. Eleanor choked slightly, then awkwardly sipped her tea. "Bloodlines are everything to our family. You know that." "Of course," Elena replied, her lips curving into a satirical smile. "I was just reading an article about hospital procedures in the past. It's fascinating how a baby could be switched either through negligence or intentionally. What do you think at Mercy General 15 years ago? Was their security system that poor?" Eleanor's face went pale. The cup in her hand clinked loudly against its saucer. "Why are you asking about things that are long past? That hospital is closed. The past has no bearing on our business today." "The past is never really dead, madam. It just hides in the shadows." Elena leaned forward, staring deep into Eleanor's now watery eyes. "Ryan slept at my house last night. Did you know, when he sleeps his face looks so much like the childhood photos of Adrian I used to have? Strange, isn't it? Meanwhile, Liam, my son, sometimes I feel he has a calmness that I don't possess, but that feels very familiar to someone in your past." Eleanor began to feel suffocated. The spacious room suddenly felt small. She started to hallucinate, hearing the cries of 2 babies echoing from the corners of the room, the same sounds that had haunted her on the night of the switch. She saw the shadow of the nurse she had bribed, standing behind Elena's chair, staring at her with empty eyes. "Enough." Eleanor rose with what little strength she had left. "I'm not here to listen to your nonsense." "Sit down, Mrs. Ashford. We haven't discussed the Foundation's shares yet." Elena's voice remained low but full of authority. "Or are you too afraid to face your own shadow? You don't look well. Has Mr. Peterson been visiting you in your dreams lately?" The name was the final blow. Eleanor staggered, gripping the edge of the table. Her hallucinations intensified. She saw the marble floor beneath her feet turn into a pool of dark birthing blood. She felt her breath catch in her throat. You don't know anything," Eleanor hissed, but her voice had lost its bite. "I know more than you can possibly imagine." Elena stood, walked around the table, and stood directly behind Eleanor, whispering words that nearly made the old woman faint. "The truth is, like water, madam, it will always find a way to seep through the smallest crack. And now, that crack has become a chasm." Eleanor fled the room without another word, hurrying towards the elevator. In the mirrored elevator, she saw her own reflection, but what she saw was an old woman whose hands were covered in black mud, the symbol of her sin of swapping 2 lives. Elena stood at the window watching Eleanor's car speed away erratically. She felt a cold satisfaction, but her soul was still screaming. She had cast the bait, and Eleanor's paranoia was consuming her. But the attack had wounded Elena as well. Every question she asked about swapped babies reminded her that she was still holding a child that was not hers. When she returned home that afternoon, she found Liam and Ryan sitting awkwardly in the living room. "Mom, Ryan was just about to leave," Liam reported. Grandma Eleanor called him, screaming something incoherent on the phone. Elena looked at Ryan. She felt a powerful urge to keep him there, to protect him from the unhinged Eleanor. But she knew if she did, Eleanor would use what little power she had left to report her for kidnapping. Again, "Go home, Ryan," Elena said softly. "Take care of yourself. And remember, my door is always open." Ryan stared at Elena for a long moment. "Why are you suddenly being nice to me? Are you planning something to take down my grandmother through me?" Ryan's sharp question stabbed Elena in the heart. My own son doesn't trust me, she thought bitterly. Ryan left, leaving Elena and Liam in a painful silence. Mom, Liam called, his voice trembling. I saw the envelope from Singapore in your bag this morning when I was looking for the house keys. It was a DNA test, wasn't it? Elena froze. She hadn't expected Liam to invade her privacy so deeply. She turned slowly to face him. He was standing there, his eyes glistening. Liam, that's not your business, Elena answered, trying to keep her voice from breaking. Not my business, Liam laughed bitterly, a sound she rarely heard from him. You've been distant ever since those results came back. You look at Ryan like he's a long-lost treasure, and you look at me like I'm dust. What did it say, Mom? Am I not your son? Am I the child of someone you hate? Elena felt her world collapse for the second time. She wasn't ready for this confrontation. She wanted to lie, but the 15 years of honesty she had built with Liam held her tongue. Liam, listen to me. Don't call yourself Mom if you're not even sure who I am, Liam shouted. He ran to his room and slammed the door. Elena sank to the living room floor alone. Her emotional pressure was unbearable. She had just mentally destroyed Eleanor, but in doing so she had just shattered the heart of the child she had raised. A small but risky decision was made by Elena that night. She wouldn't chase after Liam to explain. Instead, she took the DNA results, walked to his door, and slid them underneath. She would let him read the truth for himself. Elena realized she could no longer control all the hearts involved. She chose to detonate the bomb now rather than let it fester in uncertainty, even if it meant Liam might leave her forever. That night, Elena's house felt like a radiation zone. Behind a locked door, Liam was confronting the papers that contained both poison and truth. Elena herself sat in the darkened living room, accompanied only by the moonlight. Her hands still trembled. Handing Liam those results was the most brutal thing she had ever done, more brutal than surviving on the streets of London. Her search for peace was shattered by the sound of a car screeching to a halt outside. Headlights flooded the room. Elena stood and peered through the curtains. Adrian stumbled out of his car, his face a mess, his eyes red not from alcohol but from a rage that had broken his sanity. Before he could ring the bell, Elena opened the door. She didn't want the noise to wake Liam, whose soul was already in pieces. Adrian's voice was a ragged, trembling whisper. He was clutching a phone, its screen still lit. You were right. You were right about Sylvia all along. Elena stood impassively in the doorway. Go home, Adrian. It's the middle of the night. She did it again, Elena. All this time it wasn't just foundation money for handbags. She was with another man. A man much younger than me. I found their text messages, the hotel bills she disguised as foundation expenses. Adrian fell to his knees on the front porch right at Elena's feet. I was a fool. I betrayed you 15 years ago for a woman who doesn't even know the meaning of loyalty. Elena looked down at the top of Adrian's head with infinite disgust. Once she would have given anything to hear this confession. But now, knowing his role in the loss of 15 years with Ryan, his apology was meaningless noise. Get up, Adrian. Don't humiliate yourself further at my home, Elena said flatly. Elena, I'm begging you. Give me a second chance. Let's start over. I'll divorce Sylvia. We can be a family again. There's Ryan and Liam. We can raise them together. I need you to help me get out of this black hole my mother and Sylvia created. Adrian looked up, tears streaming down his face. Elena laughed. It was a chilling, painful sound. Family, she leaned down, her eyes boring into his. You talk about family after you let your mother throw me out like trash. You talk about a second chance after you let your wife mentally abuse your own biological son. I didn't know Sylvia was that bad, Elena. You didn't know because you chose not to see Adrian. You were too comfortable in your cocoon of lies. Elena's voice was a hiss. And now you come to me because your wife cheated on you. You're not here because you love me, but because you just realized you threw away a diamond for a piece of garbage. Adrian was silent, her words striking the core of his pride. Listen closely, Adrian. Elena continued, her voice now a low threat. You didn't just throw me away. You threw away something far more precious than a wife's loyalty. You threw your own flesh and blood into the trash, and you worshipped the son who was actually… no. You're not ready to hear that yet. Adrian frowned, confused. What are you talking about? Ryan is my son. I love him, even if he's difficult. Elena smiled mysteriously. You're so proud of Ryan because he looks like you. That's your greatest mistake. You judge everything by its cover. You threw away the jewel that held your soul simply because his appearance didn't meet your mother's arrogant standards. Elena thought of Liam. Liam, who she thought was her son, was actually the biological child of Adrian and Sylvia, the child Eleanor had kicked out for being born weak, while Ryan, her own son, was stolen to become the fake prince of that household. Go home, Adrian. Settle things with your adulterous wife, but don't you ever dream of coming back into my life. In my eyes, you are no longer the man I loved, but merely a business partner hurtling toward bankruptcy both financially and morally. Elena slammed the door, leaving Adrian frozen on her porch. Inside, she leaned against the door. The silence returned, but this time it was more menacing. She turned towards the stairs and saw Liam standing there. He wasn't crying. His face was a blank slate, as if all emotion had been drained from him after reading the DNA report. He was holding the now crinkled papers. "So that man who was just kneeling out there, he's my biological father," Liam asked, his voice unnaturally mature for a 15-year-old. Elena approached, hesitating to touch him. "Liam, And Mrs. Sylvia, the woman who tried to frame you at school, she's my biological mother," Liam continued, his eyes, now looking at Elena with a horrifying emptiness. "And Ryan, the troubled kid who always made you sad, he's your real son." Elena couldn't speak. She could only nod slowly. Liam looked at the papers in his hand, then tore them in half. "So I was the mistake they threw away, and you picked me up just to use me as a weapon for your revenge." "No, Liam, I love you. I didn't know the truth until a few days ago," Elena pleaded, but the words sounded weak even to her own ears. "But you know now," Liam retorted sharply. "And now you look at me with guilt, not love. You see Mrs. Sylvia's face in mine, don't you?" Elena felt her heart being crushed. She wanted to deny it, but she knew there was truth in his words. Ever since the results came back, she had been searching for traces of Sylvia in his face. Liam walked down the stairs past Elena and headed for the back door where his motorcycle keys hung. "Where are you going, Liam? It's late," Elena cried out in panic. "I need some air, Mrs. Vance," Liam answered, without turning back. The use of Mrs. Vance instead of Mom was a knife to her heart. "Liam, wait, it's dangerous." "Dangerous. My life has been ruined since the day I was born. There's nothing more dangerous than the reality that I am the son of the people you hate," Liam said coldly, before disappearing into the night with the roar of his motorcycle. Elena stood alone in the silent living room. Adrian was gone, and now Liam was gone. Her emotional pressure was suffocating. She had won a battle against Adrian, but had just lost the anchor of her life. A small but risky decision was made by Elena that night. She called Maya. "Maya, get a surveillance team. Don't let Liam out of your sight, but don't stop him. Let him go wherever he needs to go. And one more thing," Elena took a deep breath. "Leak the information about Sylvia's affair and her location tonight to a few gossip reporters we know. If Adrian wants destruction, give him total annihilation. I will not let Sylvia have a chance to get near Liam while he's this vulnerable." Elena knew that by involving the media, she would drag the Ashford family name and by extension Liam and Ryan's names through the mud, but she was already in too deep. She would make sure that when the dust settled, she was the only one left standing, no matter how many hearts she had to break along the way. The 25th anniversary gala of the Ashford Foundation was supposed to be a night of triumph. The hotel ballroom was filled with white lilies, expensive perfume, and the clinking of crystal glasses. But to Elena, the lavish decorations looked like tombstones covering a 15-year-old grave of lies. Elena stood in a corner wearing a blood-red silk gown that contrasted sharply with the all-white theme. She watched the elite crowd, donors, officials, and socialites who had long worshipped Eleanor as a humanitarian hero. On stage, Eleanor sat in her seat of honor, her face rigid, forcing a smile. Beside her, Sylvia fidgeted constantly, fixing her hair and glaring at the guests. Adrian was at the podium delivering a speech about family legacy and integrity. The words sounded like a satirical comedy to Elena. "Mom, please don't do this." Liam's soft whisper startled her. Elena turned. He stood behind her in a perfectly fitted tuxedo. His eyes were swollen. Since the night of the DNA discovery, Liam had barely spoken, moving like a soulless body trapped in the reality of being the son of the woman he despised most. "This isn't just about revenge, Liam. This is about restoring a stolen reputation and putting you and Ryan back where you belong." Elena answered, her voice cold, despite the trembling of her hands hidden in the folds of her gown. "Where I belong is with you, Mom." "Not with that demonic family," Liam retorted sharply. "If you do this now, you'll destroy my life and Ryan's at the same time." Elena was silent. This choice was a double-edged sword. She knew she would hurt Liam. But allowing the lie to continue was another form of betrayal to Ryan, her biological son now sitting in the front row with a bored expression, unaware that his father was praising a legacy that wasn't really his. And now, as a special surprise for tonight's celebration, Adrian's voice at the podium cut through her thoughts. Our primary partner, Mrs. Elena Vance of Sterling Holdings, has prepared a video reflecting on the Foundation's journey. Please, Mrs. Vance. The ballroom lights dimmed. Elena walked towards the stage with steady steps, each one a beat of a war drum. As she passed Eleanor, she could see the old woman holding her breath. Eleanor must have sensed something was wrong, but her pride kept her from stopping the show. Elena didn't go to the podium. She stood beside the giant screen. Tonight we talk about legacy, but a legacy isn't just about money. It's about the honesty passed down from parent to child. Elena pressed a button on the remote in her hand. The screen lit up, but it didn't show photos of orphanages or charity events. It showed a grainy amateur video of Mr. Peterson in a hospital bed, his face pale, his voice trembling. Mrs. Eleanor Ashford. She forced me to guard the back door that night. She ordered a nurse to switch Mrs. Elena's baby boy with Mrs. Sylvia's premature one. She said Elena must not have a legitimate heir. She framed her for adultery so the healthy baby could be claimed as Sylvia's son, as Ryan. A horrifying silence fell over the ballroom. The hundreds of guests were frozen. Adrian gaped, his eyes darting from the screen to his mother, who was now trembling uncontrollably. "What is this video? Stop it! It's a lie!" Sylvia shrieked, her voice piercing the silence. She tried to run to the control booth, but Maya and her security team had already blocked the way. Elena didn't stop. She pressed the next button. The DNA results appeared on the giant screen. The comparison between Ryan, Liam, and Elena's samples was displayed clearly stamped with the seal of an international lab. Probability of maternity, Ryan. 99.99%, Elena read aloud, her voice echoing through every corner of the ballroom. And the child you threw away 15 years ago, the one you called trash and left to suffer in an orphanage, he is here tonight. Liam. Elena pointed towards Liam. Eleanor tried to stand, but her legs gave out. She started coughing, her hand clutching her chest. The hallucinations of crying babies that had plagued her for days now felt terrifyingly real.